The Stock of the Day is brought to you by IG, Australia's #1 CFD provider. With over 17,000 markets and extended trading hours, turn US earnings season volatility into opportunity. Get started at IG.com.
Welcome to Stock of the Day, and for today I've asked my guests Mark Gardner from MPC Markets and Luke Winchester from Merewether Capital to pick a buy for FY26. We're in the smaller end of town. So with that in mind, Mark Gardner, tell us what you've picked and why.
We're sticking with our small cap pick from last year as well. Findi, basically, particularly with the recent catalysts of they've chosen lead managers for an Indian IPO. We got onto this, I think it was around about that September-October period back there, and we were out at $8, and we've been recently buying back in and scaling back in again. Findi's delivered a really high revenue growth, really strong free cash flow, underpinned by a really scalable business model, and the balance sheet's been quite strengthened. That record revenue is around $75.5 million, but the real catalyst for us is the re-rate coming from the IPO, because pre-money IPO valuations on the in the Indian Stock Exchange would basically re-rate this around about 700 to 900 million. Would be the average for a company like for like, and on the Indian exchange, and that would be a price somewhere between the $10.50 and $14 mark, basically. And we're sitting here just under $4 at the moment. They're delivering. There is a lot of scale, there's a lot of growth, and in this company, and I would expect that once that IPO starts to come through, and there'll be flow on interest as it gets closer to that date. So there is some small risk in the short term because they're applying for 2 licenses from the RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, but they've had no problems there in the past, and they've actually executed, and they've generally, statistically speaking, they generally rally on most announcements, and they certainly have done in the last 2 years. So. I think you're getting a bargain here at the moment for what would be a very short, what's looking to be a very short-term catalyst, because this will be screaming cheap once it gets onto that Indian exchange.
Got it. Mark Gardner, thank you. Let's go to Luke Winchester, Merewether Capital. What is your small cap pick for FY26, Luke?
Yeah, I realised as you did the intro, Nadine, I failed the assignment. I've picked a New Zealand business that has a March year end, so these guys are already 3 months into their
That's
FY26.
all right, we'll roll with it.
Yeah, we'll go with it. But eRoad, this business is, ERD. I do have a more detailed write-up in the May Merewether Capital report, so I encourage people, if this is interesting, go and have a read of that. But, the elevator pitch for this one is you've got a real SaaS software business in the enterprise fleet management. Basically, their customers are logistics companies or any sort of enterprise that operates a large fleet of vehicles. 95% recurring revenue, those high gross margins that I like to see, those that around 85% here. And like a lot of software businesses, had a pretty turmoil period through that FY22, FY23, when the market really soured on sort of cash burn and loss-making businesses, and had to embark on some cost out and some rationalisation, a bit of a turnaround. But they've done that. The business in the most recent FY25 reported about 20 mil in operating profit on a 260 odd mil market cap. So, you're trading on about that 13, 14 times cash profit, which is very low for this sort of business. And I think, the market just probably wants to see a bit more execution. It flies a little bit under the radar given that dual listing in New Zealand, but this is one I think that it reminds me a lot of Bravura, Gentrack, Catapult, these sorts of businesses where once they show that turnaround in the profitability and the ongoing sort of execution at the top line, the market comes back to them pretty quickly and sort of rewards them for the underlying positives of having that real good software business. So this is one I like, pretty recent addition, and like I said, I got that right up on the website. Encourage people to have a read, but eRoad is one that I like into FY26.
Great, wonderful, guys. Thanks, Luke, for that. Our stocks of the day, Findi and eRoad for FY26.
The stock of the day was brought to you by IG. Turn volatility into opportunity this US earnings season with extended trading hours on over 110 key US shares. Get started at IG.com.